All right, you guys, I think we have most of the people able to join audio. So hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for your time today. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Paige Edwards, and I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Onit. We are really excited about our fireside chat today. For those of you who were able to join us, in the old world, we had customer forums and regional customer meetings where we were able to bring our customers together to network and connect with their peers, but also have the opportunity to hear from our senior leadership at Onit, and have that open line of communication to hear updates about our company and our product and, all things that Onit is doing for you guys. So in this world today where we've really had to make a pivot into more of the virtual support of those kinds of lines of communication, we really wanted to create this opportunity for a fireside chat to keep that open line of communication with you all. So real quickly before I shift into introductions, I just wanted to cover some logistics things with you guys. So throughout our conversation today, we're going to utilize the Q&A function of Zoom for you all to be able to submit questions about any of the topics that we're talking about today, or if there's something maybe that we don't cover in our content that you would like to hear an update on. So feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A function. I'll be monitoring that Q&A pool throughout our discussion so that I can make sure that we are addressing those in the meeting as we have time, and keeping a list of those discussion points that maybe we didn't get to so that we have the ability to follow up with you all directly. So with that, we'll move on to the introductions. So some of you may notice we have a new moderator for today. Christine Getted was not able to join us, but we are so excited to have Elizabeth Jaworski join us. Elizabeth is the Senior Director of Global Head of Legal Operations at Estella Pharma. Elizabeth comes with an amazing background in legal operations. She previously served as Director of Legal Ops at companies like Lenovo, Motorola, and Sears Holding Company. And she is one of our customers that supports our fellow customers and is just a wealth of knowledge for you guys. So before we get started, Elizabeth, I just really want to thank you for joining us last minute and bringing your insights and conversations to our fireside chat this morning.
Thanks, Paige. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and then from the Onit leadership perspective, I'm also joined this morning by Matt Denowden, who's our VP of Global Sales, and our CEO and founder, Eric Elfman.
All right, Paige, go ahead and take over.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for those in different locations. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you adapting to kind of this new world and not doing physical meetings. I'm excited to be here too. There are a lot of good things that continue to happen at Onit, but we're going to be honest and talk to you about the challenging effort of running a young company during this pandemic as well, with a focus on what we're doing to continue to support our customers and our employees. This is really about you. We have some predefined questions that we have put together with help from some of our clients, but really it's going to go to Q&A with all of you on the line. So feel free to ask whatever it is you want to ask, and I promise we'll get to it. Quick little refresher on who Onit is today. A lot of you have been customers for a long time and may not really understand who we are today. We continue to be one of the younger companies in the ELM space, but far from new. We now have physical offices in 4 locations: Houston, Austin, Mountain View, California, and Pune, India, with a growing team of a handful of folks in the UK building our European presence to support our European customers. We also have 329 employees. You're going to hear that has gone up since the pandemic started. We chose a different path to handling the challenging business environment that the pandemic is creating. We did not swing to a reduction in force. We've actually staffed almost 20 bodies since this started, and we'll probably hire another 30 before the year is out. I would love to be telling you that this pandemic is not affecting Onit, but it absolutely is. As we sit here today, we have 3 employees that have COVID. Unfortunately, that matches the percentage in the US that have COVID, 1% in the US. Onit is about 1% inside of Onit today. We strongly encourage all of our employees to continue to not show up to an office, and that is almost universally true, that we continue to be 329 people that do our jobs through Zoom from our homes. And so we are doing everything we can to make sure that we're doing our part to protect the employees. You'll hear about that in a moment. But sales are also depressed. There's no two ways about it. As the entire world transitioned to working from home, Onit is a software company where everyone had MacBook Pros and operated wherever they were at, because we're a traveling company. It was relatively easy for us to transition to a work from home, but it wasn't as easy for a lot of our customers to do inside of the legal departments. And so we have found it wasn't that hard for Onit to transition to selling in this new world, but we had to adapt to the struggles of big companies learning how to buy and to start big RFP processes, staying from home. So we've had to adapt. I certainly know you have all had to adapt. The reality is sales are going to be lower than we originally planned this year, but Onit's in a fortunate position of being a high growth company that we will still be high growth this year, just half of the growth that was originally possible this year. A part of why we bucked the trend of other software companies who, as a rule of thumb, cut deep and cut fast if you're going to terminate employees. And a lot of software companies moved to that. Even in our space, a lot of software companies moved to that. We fought that with internally and got our private equity sponsor completely supported the idea that we don't want to lose any of our capabilities. And you'll hear that what we really wanted to do was come out of this stronger than we went into the pandemic, and stronger than our peers. And so this is what we're doing today. So back in really early March, I wish I could say we were prophetic and looking at this in January and February, but we weren't. When the whole world was realizing what was happening, we had to figure out what it meant to our business. And this was a time when you were seeing companies swinging to terminating 20 and 30% of their staff before they even really knew what the impact of all of this was going to be. And so we had to figure out what this was going to mean to our business with no more information than the rest of the world had, right? Which meant for a young company, we had to figure out, because we don't have billions of dollars in the bank, we had to make sure we were going to support our employees and our customers. And so it started with, what are the principles that are going to guide the decision? I find when you got to make really big, hairy decisions, first you need to define the criteria or the principles that you're going to make the decision. Only then can you really go do it. And so we set out what is most important for us, and these have not evolved since this started in early March for us. So we've stayed true to these. One is we want to keep our employees safe. We, like the rest of the world, swung to work from home immediately. We want to do our part to slow the community spread of the virus. Even though we match the statistics in the US, 1% of our employee base has COVID, none of that was transmitted through interaction with another Onit employee or by being on an Onit location. We want to continue to serve our customers with the highest standards. It would have been easy to cut 20 or 30% of our staff to say, boy, we really want to weather this storm. But we've got tons of customers that count on us, 435 customers, a lot of them in implementation. We didn't want to do any damage to our ability to continue to deliver our existing customers. And we have continued to sell really big and really complicated deals even through this. We have to make sure we have capability to support them. Finally, it's protecting employees' jobs. Now, before it was clear to me and my executive leadership team that we were going to be able to save jobs, we set this out as a guiding principle that we want to protect as many employees' jobs as possible. And my going in desire was to be able to extract costs from the business that didn't have me firing a single employee because of the pandemic. And so protecting our employees' jobs was vitally important to me. Both our customers and our employees are the backbone of Onit, and without either, we're just not the company that I want to be if we're not supporting both of those. So who are we? And we'll get into some of what are the changes the pandemic and even the financial crises that have occurred are driving us to do. But at the end of the day, we are who we were when all of this started. And I'll get into some more details about this in a moment. We are a product-focused company. We have two brands today that operate largely independent, Simple Legal and Onit, even though there are a lot of shared services between the two companies. So both companies are continuing to be dedicated to their roadmaps and growing the products, especially in this time when our peers are retrenching somewhat just to survive this. We are trying to figure out how to emerge in even a stronger way. We completed a move to AWS from Rackspace at the end of June. That was a huge project that is going to help our customers scale faster and have faster applications to run. Acquisitions it's hard to talk about a silver lining in something as horrific as the pandemic, but in times of struggle, there are always opportunities. And when I was running my last company after the dot-com crash, we bought two companies. And so Onit is taking a similar approach here. We've really fine-tuned our acquisition strategy and are focusing in two main areas. One is in augmenting our CLM product, our contract lifecycle management product, with AI capabilities. Specifically, we want to enable our platform with the ability to review agreements pre-signature based on historic data and playbooks in a way where when an attorney opens a contract, it's already had the first level review done. And in post-signature data extraction, either in historic contract loads or wanting to understand the risk or search for specific terms in 10 or 100,000 old agreements. And so we've chosen to acquire that technology as opposed to start from scratch. And then we're also looking at other ELM companies like Simple Legal, when we bought about 15 months ago, to either help us geographically or from a feature function perspective. We actually have letters of intent out for one of each of these today. I hope in the next 2 weeks to actually sign these letters of intent and close it in the late summer or the early fall. So watch for news on that. We are a high growth company. This is one of those places we do stand out from some of our older peers in the space. We grew more than 100% in 2019. And we're in the fortunate position, despite sales being hampered this year, we're still going to be a high growth organization at 30%. Unfortunately, it could have been 60% had all of this not occurred. And we'll get back to those days. My belief is that the current work from home that has been forced on the entire world is going to force legal departments to adopt technology at a faster rate now, especially things like workflow and collaboration and process management technology. And in that, I think Onit has a real strength. Finally, while we set out to hire 100 employees this year, which matches about what we hired last year, we're certainly not going to do that. But we are contrarian in that you will see us. We've already hired almost 20 people since this started. There will be another 10 to 30 people before the end of the year. We're actually behind our pandemic hiring plan because we just can't hire people fast enough, even given the current world. And back to the austerity measures, we did implement austerity measures that took $10 million of cost out of the business. Honestly speaking, some of that happened without us. No travel, right? We substantially haven't traveled in almost 4 months now. Trade shows are gone, which is a huge expense for us. So a lot of this was taken care of for us. But another almost $7 million was a lot of work figuring out how do we cut out costs without terminating a single employee and without damaging any of our capabilities. So again, I'm not saying there's a silver lining to this pandemic, but it has forced Onit, like a lot of other strong companies, to figure out how to get stronger and make decisions about some of their cost structure that they otherwise haven't been forced to do. Diversity, in the middle of all of this, as we all know, has really become an important topic for the country and really around the world. And so I thought it was important to not only share how we're thinking about it, but show what Onit looks like today and what we're doing to become stronger. And so we have implemented a diversity, equity, and inclusion program. I know that probably everybody on the phone understands what those mean, but to me, diversity is a snapshot of who we are today. Equity is who do we want to be? What do we want to look like at the end of a process? And inclusion are the things that we're going to do to get there. And so we've created a task force. It's comprised all of our geographies and our companies. They're going to be the voice that helps drive what we do going forward. We're looking for some facilitation to come in. While I don't believe there is any active bias in the company against diversity, the reality at the end of the day is we're not nearly as diverse as we need to be. So we need to see if there are unconscious things occurring in our organization. It starts with measuring your diversity. And so I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. We can't snap our fingers and change who a 330 person company is overnight, but we can start by changing every new face that comes into the organization. Where that starts is in our recruiting. So I'll share with you what we're doing in recruiting. And so we are taking this seriously. This is not lip service. This is an important topic for Onit that is long overdue. And I'll share some more here. So this is the snapshot of Onit. I'm not proud of these numbers. What we see is the US population across the top, our two brands, Onit and Simple Legal. And Onit could have looked better if we would have just blended the two, but we really wanted to show you how our different brands are. And then a couple of other tech companies, and whether they're the right measure or not, I don't know. At first glance, you could say good news is we kind of match the way tech companies are. But why I think that's wrong is most tech companies are not as diverse as they should be. So we can't look at any of these as the model for diversity, equity, or inclusion. And so it was a bit controversial whether we share this information with our customers, but I'm a big believer in honesty and transparency. And if we can't admit who we are, I don't know how we're going to admit we have challenges and are going to actually make those changes. So I would hope 6 months from now, 12 months from now, I can show you that this has changed. But more importantly, if I show you the delta between today's employees and the new ones that we've hired over the next year, you should see dramatic change in the distribution of those employees. So it really all starts in recruiting. Again, I don't believe we have an active bias against hiring diversity, either gender or racial or anything else, sexual preference. But the reality is we've wound up as an organization that doesn't match who we really should want to be. And so what I believe is we haven't been uncovering candidates that are as diverse as the population that we eventually want to hire. And so we are now making it a requirement that half of the candidates that we are sourcing for any given job represent diversity. Now, we haven't made the similar, hey, it has to be this at stage 2 and this at stage 3, but my belief is the result of this is going to be a more diverse population. In fact, we're recruiting for 2 senior positions now, and I think as a result of this effort, both will represent diverse employees that we wind up hiring. We've also elevated one of our longtime employees, our VP of Legal and Head of Compliance, Sasha Jan, effectively acting as our General Counsel. We have promoted her to the executive leadership team to bring both some diversity to what is historically a male-based executive leadership team. So we've already started trying to make change in all of these areas. So going back a little bit to the playbook, this really has been the year of the customer, and the pandemic has challenged a lot of our day-to-day activities, but has not changed our strategy. We started out saying this is the year of the customer. We want to know our customers. What does that mean? Well, we want to help. We want to make sure we're solving the problem at the highest level. We want to co-innovate increasingly. We're typically dealing with cutting-edge companies and legal departments that are wanting to innovate. We want to be a partner in that innovation, not just deliver software to them. And then it boiled down to 3 broad defining objectives. And this is the way Onit attacks strategic planning every single year. It starts with fulfill our promises. And so that starts with communicate our promises. What's Onit's brand promises? Let's make sure that what we are saying to our prospects and our customers, we are then following through and actually doing and delivering on those. Second, we can't continue to win in this space like we have been as a multi-product company if we're not delivering next level versions of all of the major products that we sell. And finally, we want to improve customer satisfaction. We've always had good customer satisfaction with great retention, but we have 3 measures that say we want to get better on all of these. We want to improve the way our customers think about us. We want to reduce our average implementation cycle by 10%. And once we achieve that, another 10% and another 10%. And we want to increase our already strong customer retention to north of 95%. And so this is by and large the same, despite the pandemic changing a lot of our day-to-day activity. And so how did it change this page? You know, while we still want to and are going to fulfill our promises, we have rethought this a little, and you've heard me say the word stronger a couple of times now. We really did set out on a course that said we want to become a stronger company from this. My belief, having lived and led a company through the dot-com crash, is that strong companies get stronger in times like this, and weak companies get weaker, unfortunately. And so I believe Onit started as a strong company, and we're going to continue to invest in our employees, our customers, our capability, and we're going to emerge from this stronger than we entered. Now I'll ask Matt to take over.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Just to kind of follow on Eric's point, you know, these are really mantras for us. I mean, we hope that someday again you can come to our office and you'll see that this is kind of everywhere in our thinking. And certainly Emerge Stronger has been our banner now all the way since February and January. But I just kind of want to give you some anecdotes and some examples. You know, we are continuing to hire, but our principal focus is hiring on our customer-facing teams. So most of you know that our services team is led by Scott, and a strong presence there. He already has more direct reports than anybody in the organization, precisely because they are customer-facing. We're building that team. Even when we kind of, you know, took a pause on hiring for a little while, you know, some of my team from the sales engineering team moved over to Scott's team to make sure that we could sort of double down on our customer-facing teams. We've also really dug in on our roadmaps for our products. And so I'd be curious to hear your experience, but in our experience, there's been as much or more demand for some of our products and offerings other than ELM. We continue to be one of the leaders in the ELM space, but we have seen a huge uptick in the need for contracts management. Obviously, driving revenue and making that efficient is probably more important than ever. And as Eric said, and we're going to discuss in a moment, our custom apps, which has always been a strength of Onit, which can often be delivered in weeks instead of months, is pretty timely at this point, and we've seen a huge uptick there. So more to come on that subject. But you know, I also want to emphasize, and I know that Elizabeth has some questions about it. Wherever we hear from our customers that there's a flat spot in what we deliver to them, we double down on that. And so reporting has had some flat spots in it in terms of our, you know, time to delivery, and so we've got a strategic project on that, which we'll talk about in a moment. So I hope you know that we're listening to you as closely as we can about what you most need from us. But probably the biggest thing we did, and go ahead, Paige, is to make sure that we built a community in this time when everything was virtual. Many of you on the phone today have already attended these sessions, but for those who have not, starting in March, we stood up a group called Lean Into Legal Ops, which was constituted not only our customers, but we've now had 1,500 people sign up for the webinars that we've been running. They're sort of framed as master classes, whereby one of our experienced customers talks about what they're doing in their law department, and we sort of carry the bags in the conversation, sometimes accompanied by one of our consulting partners. And we've just had phenomenal uptake on this. It's also possible to become a member of Lean Into Legal Ops, which has a lot of benefits, not the least of which is that you get all of the upcoming invites to the seminars. And in fact, we're planning a really strong fall curriculum. We're in a little bit of a summer recess right now, having had a fairly torrid pace of webinars in the last 3 months. We're standing up a whole curriculum for the fall. So if you're interested in being a speaker, or if you have interests in topics, you know, reach out to Paige and I. We're also putting together a Europe-specific curriculum. We've already had 2 webinars there that were quite successful with our customers over there. So I kind of want to honor the fact that, you know, there is a different experience and set of needs in Europe as well. A theme that kind of is run throughout, go ahead, Paige, our interactions with customers is, you know, when we had the forums, and I think even Elizabeth might have been one of the ones who asked that in one of the in-person forums, please, you know, can you give us an inventory of all the use cases, all the workflow problems that you've solved beyond your core products? Obviously, we have core products in Matter, Spend, Legal Holds, Contracts. And then beyond that, we have now in 10 years actually built 160 use cases of solutions. So what does that mean? So for instance, we are working with one of our pharma clients who has a completely separate investigations unit from the law department, and they had tried to deliver in essence, project management, investigation management solution using some third-party software. It took them 18 months and over $1 million, and it never went live. We came in and stood it up in 60 days. Now, they had their requirements together, so I don't want to, you know, make it sound like that was all on us. They were very ready to do it. But that's one example out of 160, if you follow me. So we are not even through the entire inventory. I'm pretty confident we'll tip over the 200 app list, but this is more than just a list being written on some whiteboard. Paige and Jonathan and a number of folks are doing full-blown interviews, both internal and external, so that we can document the use case, the needs that generated the app, the experts on it. And so in many ways, this is a template for other people to follow suit with things that we've done before. So we're going to be going on a little, I wish it was in person, but we're going to be going on a virtual road trip through our customer base for folks who are interested in kind of seeing this catalog and talking to us about what the community as a whole has been doing to leverage on it. So again, if you have an interest in that, raise your hand to Paige and her team, and we would love to talk with you. It's a really inspiring story, mostly about what you all are doing with our platform. So we're super excited about this. And so I think that what we want to do now is turn it over to you, Elizabeth. And again, thank you. I know you had a couple questions to pose to Eric and I, and again, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And again, Paige, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to participate today. I have in the past participated in the customer forum and the in-person regional groups. So I as a customer, really appreciate Onit's efforts to continue with transparency and communication and sharing. So this is just yet another format. And again, I appreciate Onit's continued efforts because to me, partnerships, vendor partnerships, and are key. The success is key for both the customers coming together and learning from one another, and from getting that input and information from Onit. So thanks. Eric, I want to go back to the beginning when you talked about Onit's approach to COVID, and you're taking many steps in your company that I think many of us are doing within our own companies. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you've actually learned from all of this, and how it might change your approach to managing the business going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. It certainly has challenged the way I and a lot of us have thought about the necessity for meeting in an office, one single physical location. Although we've got employees all around the world working from home, if we don't have an office, the majority of our employees were in offices. And I wouldn't say I necessarily fought the idea of becoming a virtual organization, but I you know, we've got big fancy offices just like most of you, and there's just a collaboration that comes from being able to come into an office. Look, I think this is going to change our physical footprint forever. We have already delayed expansion of facilities in 2 locations, and in fact may even be going down in size in 2 others, because I just don't think it is necessary as it is before. That being said, I think the one thing hurting us right now is that we can't come together and collaborate even when we want to. And so I can't ask people to come in on a whiteboard and let's talk about things. So that has been the most troubling, that we haven't really found a way. There's no online whiteboarding that feels as good as getting in a room. And so we will probably, from a physical perspective, be different than when we entered this. Ultimately, I suspect we'll travel less. Onit has historically been a company where it's on a get on a plane first and then ask questions next, right? Because this is how Onit and really my companies have traditionally done business, and we're really good at that. And there have been no less than 20 times over the last 3 months where I wanted to get on a plane and just go hash out an issue with a prospect or a customer. We can't do that. So I think we'll be more efficient there, just like I think everybody on the phone in their organizations are going to be more efficient at buying technology going forward. I think we'll become more efficient. You know, probably the most challenging, and I wish I could tell you we've sorted it all out, is how to market and sell in a world like this. You know, I talked to you about how we're trying to protect our employees and support them working from home. And I didn't tell you, but we give extra mental health days. We're strongly encouraging people to take time off. But selling and marketing in this new world is radically different, and we have not unlocked it probably any better than other really good companies. But it's changing everything from how we interact with someone who's never met us to how we close really big, complicated deals for really big, complicated software completely virtually, and then deliver it completely virtually. So it is testing us in ways that at the end of the day, we're going to become a more efficient, a leaner company, hopefully a faster implementation company going forward. But it is escalating what probably would have taken us 5 years to do into really the last 4 months, and as I see it, the next 6 months.
Thanks for that. I think it'll be really interesting to see, not just for Onit and all your customers, but for all companies. I think we learned and some were forced to learn how to work remotely, and what that really does do to kind of our physical offices going forward, and what kind of impact that's going to have just on the business community broadly. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. You also talked about the growth of the company during the pandemic, and you mentioned just being at a percentage of anticipated growth. And depressed sales. And now you just mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, having never worked in sales myself, it must be a different approach. From the customer perspective, that face-to-face, that building that relationship is a key decision point when you are making your selection. So can you talk a little bit about how this whole thing will, a little bit more on your growth and how it's impacted it?
Yeah, I'll ask Matt to weigh in. We actually did close right at the end of Q2 a Fortune 100 company. And I think that sales cycle kind of started during COVID and ended during COVID. And Matt could confirm or
Sure.
tell me I'm lying. But that deal was substantially built on Zoom and phone conversations. But Matt, maybe talk a little bit about that. Then broadly speaking, how do you see this changing the world?
Yeah, so I really miss being face-to-face with customers. So it's not without its effect in that regard. But really what I've tried to inspire my team to do, and I hope they were kind of always good at this, but we've had to get even better, is just to really understand the situation on the ground for our prospects and customers. And here I'm sort of focusing on prospects because what we've seen happen is that people's budget that they had coming into the year will get taken away. They'll have to go redo a business case. Literally in that company that Eric mentioned, 4 different occasions in 2 months, it went all the way up to the C-suite to reapprove the budget. And so what we're pretty good at doing is figuring out a way to work within the confines of the budget that folks have, including, kind of the timing of it. So as Elizabeth, as you were saying, it's really a partnership from day one. And so in the first instance, we put together a bunch of ROI calculators that help people do business casing. We sort of view ourselves as carrying around the bags of our sponsors in a sales cycle. So if anything, I think it's caused us to get closer to our customers and our prospects because we have to look through the screen and are probably in closer touch, both in terms of frequency and I would like to think depth of conversation with our customers and prospects than ever before. Certainly we'll turn back to that when Paige gives you a little bit more details on the CX program. But I kind of like to think that this is something we're good at, and it's certainly something we enjoy. So there's been some good in all of this that I hope to carry forward into the conference room as soon as we can. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. So you guys also discussed diversity and everything that it's more than just COVID going on in our environment today. And diversity has, I think, risen to the front burner, if you will, for many companies. So thanks for sharing, Eric, and being very transparent with your numbers and the makeup of your company. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're hearing from customers and anything that they might need help with to implement their own diversity initiatives?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I will also throw it to Matt here in a moment. I mean, look, diversity is a major topic despite the pandemic. and rightfully so. You know, whatever it took to bring this thing to the forefront and to keep it there in ways that we haven't seen it stick before, all for. But yeah, we have long had to adapt to the needs of our customers who had a desire to drive diversity through their use of outside counsel and their own legal departments. And so I feel like the recent times are starting to escalate that, but we do have a long history in helping support that. So Matt, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, certainly Eric and I and all of us who've been in this industry for a long time have been fortunate enough to have a lot of thought-leading customers, you among them, Elizabeth, in terms of moving early on this subject. So, you know, my bias is towards making sure that we get as much data as possible. So for instance, instead of just measuring, you know, what partners and associates come to the conference room for a pitch from a law firm, you know, who's actually doing your work, right? Measure the timekeepers and their diversity. And what sometimes gets overlooked is we're also keen to support the thinking about who is your team internal to the law department. One of the many things that makes Onit different is our ability to kind of track every matter that matters, to coin a phrase from one of our customers, and thus all of the work and who's doing it. We've had a number of instances where we had a customer who had a divestiture. They had to business case who stayed, who left, what size team, how much work stayed and left. We've had that several different times now. And so I think we could help sort of business case retaining your team and expanding your team. And I would love to see us more and more, not just with outside counsel, but with internal teams help you find a way to build diversity and track diversity to your standards and with your metrics in mind. So it's been a long-standing thread throughout the whole history of our time in the marketplace, and we're happy to dig in deeper. There's obviously some constraints in Europe and other places about what kind of information you can track, and so we have to be a little bit nimble as a piece of software, where you might be asking your law firms in the US to give one kind of information and your law firms in Europe and elsewhere another. So in some measure, this is a technology issue too, which we certainly are stepping up to the table on that as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because collecting the data is one challenge, as you just mentioned. But it, you know, maybe for another fireside chat, it would be really interesting to see how companies can get information from like, what are they doing with that data? What decisions are being driven from that data, or how are they making that data actionable? So it absolutely is a big topic. So thanks for that. Paige, are we going to do a poll now? Is that correct? Look at me using technology. I'm so excited. Actually, I'm not doing anything. So.
Yes.
So we're going to take a poll. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you all should now be seeing the poll pop up in the front of your screen. So if you guys don't mind just taking a quick moment, we just have a couple of questions that we're just interested in hearing from you all and hearing from our customers about, you know, what you guys are doing with regards to diversity requirements for outside counsel. And then there's a secondary question that I think we'll hit on a little bit later in our conversation. But just talking and hearing from you guys about what are your most critical pain points that you and your organization are facing in this, you know, new world that we're all working in. So we'll keep that poll open for just a quick minute, if you guys don't mind just reviewing those and answering those, and then we can close the poll and share the results and give you guys a little bit of immediate feedback of, you know, what the peers in our customer base, you know, are saying about these kinds of topics.
We get to see,
I feel like we should be playing Jeopardy music.
You know, while the results come in, Elizabeth, I thought your point about using the data as a counseling tool for your firms and kind of how do you use the information is really, of course, excellent. And I think there's still an unmet need or opportunity across the industry to take some of this information collaboratively and kind of have law firm scorecards and use it as a way to engage with probably your key firms, perhaps not every single one of them. And you know, DuPont was my very first customer 20 years ago. So I learned a little bit about this from Tom Sager and others who've done it since then, including you, Elizabeth. But I think that we as software vendors could do more to give structure to that conversation in terms of gathering some of these reports and metrics. You know, what does my book of business as a law firm look like with Astellas, right? Has it gone up or down in different matter types? And a whole bunch of pieces of information that we both have that I know the law firms would love to know about. And, you know, probably some things that we could do to counsel them to best and better practices as well together. So we'd love to see us do some more of that together.
Yeah, that would be a really interesting discussion to have with customers and law firms together.
Right.
Right. So here's a scorecard. It's a point in time set of data, and then what do you do with that to improve over time, or to communicate your expectations to your firms.
Right.
Yeah. So we have results.
Paige, did that buy you enough
I think
time?
yeah, I think you were going to give us about 30 more seconds. I think it's pulling the results together, and then we'll be able to share.
I think you're already sharing.
Yeah, I'm seeing something on my screen page. So.
Oh, well then it's my internet just lagging behind. Oh, there it is. So as you guys can see, we have about 50% of our attendees today that have no program related to diversity. And then it's almost evenly split between the others, between having a program and, you know, having technology that you guys are actively using, having a program, but it's something that you might be tracking manually, or having a program, but having some challenges about, you know, consistently tracking that information for your organization. So a little bit later, we're going to talk about, you know, the Onit CX and the program and, you know, what we're bringing, but this kind of information and these kind of discussions are exactly what we're looking for, you guys, and what we're hearing from you all, and, you know, wanting to connect with your peers and understanding what other organizations are doing so that you can bring that information, you know, back to your company to make recommendations or come with ideas, right, of how we can make things better. So thank you all for participating. We really appreciate it.
Wow, I did not expect reporting and analytics to be so overwhelmingly the winner there, or the loser. But it kind of reinforces Matt's point that one of the things we are leaning into heavy now is reporting and analytics. Thanks.
Well, let's continue to talk about that then, Eric. So what are some of the plans for the future company and the products, and how they're going to, I mean, we're all moving forward sort of in our own ways. So what are the plans for the future of the company and product?
Yeah, I'll talk at the ethereal level because that's what I'm best at, and then Matt can get into the details of it. But look, you know, I told you earlier that we're trying to buy a company that has a solid AI foundation in the CLM space to solve a couple of use cases. The truth is, what we're trying to do is buy an AI platform for all of Onit. It starts with our CLM product. But Elizabeth, I see a play for AI to comb through the $30 billion of electronic invoices that we've collected, right? And somehow build that into analytics for our individual customers, but all of our customers. We need to move to a benchmarking world. I actually see an application for AI in the management of legal work as well, in our ELM product as well as our workflow product. But more specifically, reporting and analytics, I'll ask Matt to kind of weigh in here. And it could be this is a topic for whether it's a special LELO or a special one of these, just like diversity maybe in the future, a working group. But Matt, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things I enjoy about working for Eric and Eric is that we hear a need in the customer base, we resource against it. And so, you know, in addition to having folks like Paige very much focused on this, the entire customer service team, we actually asked Eric Smith to lead up our efforts around reporting. And so they're pretty multidimensional. Some of it's blocking and tackling. We needed more people building custom reports for our customers. And so we hired more people. Which is, you know, cutting down the time to delivery where you've got pre-identified custom reports. And so, you know, you need to do the basic things well, and we needed more people to do that. And Eric, but Eric Smith in particular has been at the vanguard of championing that. Then it goes all the way through to, customers who say, I have really good data on my spend. I'd like better data on my matters. I have both contracts management with you and ELM, and I've got great reports on the workflow of my contracts management, but now that I'm starting to develop an inventory of contracts, I want even more financial reporting. And so Tableau is starting to expand, and analytics, if analytics means financial information, is starting to expand across all our various products. And then finally, we as a technology company have to make sure that the tie between our platform and Tableau is as tight and elegant and as timely as it should be. And so we've got folks in the engineering organization very much focused on that, so that we can keep our promise of really having this be up to the moment and just as useful to you as the information that sits in the platform itself. So I entirely agree. Paige and I are happy to organize a workshop where Smith can come in and kind of tell folks what's going on. I think it would be a great one to do. So that's a bit of a brief promise of more.
Yeah, and Matt, we had a good question come in the Q&A. So the question is, we need to use our ELM to track workload. What is Onit doing with ELM to make sure we can pull reports and analytics that are not tied to spend, but are tied to workload? Yeah,
so one of the Lean Into Legal Ops webinars, Brad Rogers from TIA was on. And so we have recordings of that, and obviously we can just make an introduction to Brad. But he, among many of our customers, did a great job in making sure that they were tracking not only the work that outside counsel did, but they were tracking pretty nearly the totality of the work handled by the law department. Now, Brad did that for a couple of different reasons. One of them was he was pretty passionate about moving that work around to the right team, some of which was offshore, some of it was onshore. Making sure that especially the attorneys in the law department were doing the highest value work. So we're, as fundamentally a workflow platform, we're pretty good at capturing the work. We're also pretty good at capturing data by people simply doing work in the platform. So what do I mean by that? If there's an approval workflow where I have to approve as the AGC anytime someone chooses a law firm that's not on our panel, simply by clicking approve or disapprove in my email, we're capturing data, we're capturing how quick it took to do that, and we're capturing the sort of full inventory of work. So what we try to avoid as much as possible is asking our users to go do work and then key the work into the system. So I think we're kind of uniquely positioned to help people capture their work. In terms of trying to, associate finances with that, obviously there's lots of choices about whether you have your internal people keep time or whether they're keeping a log of what BU they're working for and how many open projects they have for different BUs. We've done it in all of those ways. And again, this is something that I think we're kind of uniquely positioned to do well, and would love to see us drive this into a conversation across our customer base, because we have customers doing it in many different ways right now.
I think that's right. The honest truth, though, is in ELM, which remember is only one of the 160 plus solutions we've done, you are right. It is heavily spend focused, because that's kind of a lot of our legacy here. And so we will cop to not having done as much of the matter level tracking as we need to in that product. But because we solve all of these different problems, we do have, in contract lifecycle management, all of the reporting none of the reporting has anything to do with the financials. It's more about lifecycle. In our legal service request, we have customers using us for workload management, exactly to the question here, where depending on the complexity of a legal service request or the type, Onit will make a determination as to who, from a workload, a balance perspective, is the right next person to get that task or that matter or that question. What we haven't done a good enough job of doing is bringing that back into the ELM product as a whole. What it's left us with is a lot of unique special projects for our customers to tweak reports for them individually. Matt, how is that manifesting itself in terms of a more enhanced reporting package in our ELM product to all of our customers?
Yeah, I mean, so we do the basics pretty darn well. Having been in the industry, there's always some, a large matter report or general counsel report, which is tracking the most important cases. We have our customers using our system for FASB 5 reporting. But we've really tried, for better or worse, to essentially marry our solution and our reporting to how our customers want to account for this work. And there's probably not 50 ways to do that. There's probably 5. And again, I think this would be a good workshop for folks to exchange ideas, because there really are kind of no limitations in terms of how we can help people track things. And so Paige, I know we're close to being out of time. Maybe we shift over to Paige, chatting about some of the things, if it's all right with you, Elizabeth, about the upcoming for the customer experience, because I know these kinds of workshops are one of them.
Yeah, before we go to Paige, I just want to make one comment, because Eric, you mentioned AI, and Matt, you talk a lot about data. And just from a customer's perspective, it's interesting that there's a lot of talk about it, but it also is a lot of work on the customer side. So even setting up all that AI, there's a lot of background and libraries and data that need to be created and then maintained to be able to get all of that information and data so that you can make decisions or have some intelligent data there. And to me, then it all comes back to, if I want my folks to use a system, I need to show them the value of it, right? And I need to give them the best user experience that they can possibly have. So I know, like, there's probably, and Paige, maybe this is where you want to talk about some things, but it'd be interesting to hear, like, how do you address that from like user adoption and training and to just, because it can be challenging from the in-house side.
Yeah, Paige, please take this.
Yeah, absolutely. So user adoption and change management when it comes to technology is a big thing, right? You can spend all of your time implementing the tech and using your resources to get the right solution in. But if you're not driving that user adoption and then change management in the organization, you're kind of losing the value of your investment. So in the account management side, we do a lot of things to support our customers and their rollouts. We kind of enjoy the gamification of it, right? Generating some excitement, talking about some challenges that we can use to excite the users to get in and create their first matters, or, get an invoice through the system. So if you're looking for some support for how you can support a rollout, I would highly encourage you guys to reach out to your account managers and just talk to them about, ideas and what we've done successfully in the past to support you guys as you're rolling out these new technologies. Because like Matt said, what we're seeing, at least from our customer base, is people are starting to turn their head and really looking into the future of, how they get these technologies implemented quickly, but also driving, that user adoption so that the users are getting the benefit out of the investment. And then from a larger holistic perspective, we're really focusing on the Onit CX program. And when we say Onit CX, we're talking about, that Onit customer experience. So this program for us is really our way of formalizing all of our programs that we do to improve the customer experience and to add value to your engagement with our company. For us, the Onit CX really came from having conversations with you guys and hearing about your needs and hearing about, areas that, we can do better, and then sitting back internally and having conversations about what we can bring to the table for you all to support you in that, world-class way that we're constantly striving for. We have teams that manage products. We have teams that manage services, but we really felt like we could do more. And we kept hearing from you guys that you wanted more. So what, is included in Onit CX for us? In the old world, right, we would have those in-person customer forum events and regional meetings where we would bring you guys together for these customer-led discussions and case studies. We'd bring you guys to network with your peers and create those connections with like-minded individuals so you guys could talk about how you're solving those problems. We'd have the platform to have conversations with senior leadership and keep that open line of communication, not only with our customers, but with, your fellow peers and the Onit leadership team. Things have changed, right? So we're having to make that shift to virtually support you guys, you know, in the same way and bring that same kind of value through the Onit CX program. So I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to hit some key points with you guys real quickly. But this fall, you know, we've really spent some time thinking about ways that we can support you guys virtually. So the program that'll be kicking off later this year is going to include regularly scheduled check-ins with you guys so we can make sure that we constantly have a pulse of your needs and things that we can bring to you in these challenging times of having, you know, the remote workforce. We're going to be scheduling working groups so that you guys have the ability to network with each other and connect, even though we're not able to meet in person like we would for the forums and the regional meetings. We're going to continue to schedule these Fireside chats so we have that platform of communication with Onit in our senior leadership team. We're also adding some educational components to the CX group. So we're going to be adding monthly lunch and learn events. And we're looking to host a customer-driven workshop just to support you guys in education, not only in legal technology, but also key topics and trends of legal operations and business processes. And then we're also going to throw in some fun in the mix, right? It's not always just business. We like to support you guys from a holistic perspective. So we're looking at fun things like virtual customer appreciation events, and maybe throwing out a little hackathon where we can, you know, have some friendly competition about ideation of what you can do with a platform like Onit to support your teams. So we're working hard to create those programs and get all of the logistics rolled out. And we're really excited to engage with you guys again this fall.
Paige, thanks, Elizabeth. I think we probably are at time. If there's any you know, burning question left, we can probably try to answer it. Otherwise, I think we've got to wrap up. And thanks for everyone for staying with us this whole hour. It's so good to talk to all of you. Hope to see you soon. And you're in our hearts and thoughts.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your time.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Bye-bye.